What if the biggest thing Prince William revealed about Meghan Markle wasn't something he said at all, but something he refused to say? What if, during nearly 3 hours of relaxed national radio, while talking openly about family, memories, parenting, football, and life inside the royal household, the future king delivered his clearest message yet through absolute silence? Because that is the question now sending royal watchers into overdrive. Not because of a dramatic confrontation, not because of a leaked document, not because of a shocking headline, but because millions of listeners heard Prince William speak freely for hours, and one family branch seemed to disappear from existence completely.
Mother, and she had the cream on first.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, she did.
Okay.
We'll chat to Rianne, your mum, and it's been lovely seeing her again and having a chat, so thank you so much. I take them wash cake. Hiding stuff from them doesn't work, and so explaining how they feel, why that's happening, they flourish, and the impact they can have is truly phenomenal.
What about storytelling? One thing I, as a journalist, see is...
He didn't even hit the ball that was going in the net. He was already up celebrating. How do you know? He's like, we're watching them training. He'd practiced that free kick several times. Then he just knew.
Love a bit of Ray, where's my husband? And my wife constantly is asking, where is my husband?
Is that one of Catherine's choice?
And I think we've challenged them at every turn to be bolder, be better, be ambitious, reach for the stars.
William, His Royal Highness, appearing on the Heart Breakfast radio show, and he gave some rare insights into his family life.
And we're a very open family, so we talk about things that bother us and things that trouble us. But you never quite know the knock-on effect.
Last Friday looked innocent enough on the surface. William walked into a cafe on the Isles of Scilly, sat down for what should have been a lighthearted appearance on Heart Breakfast, and immediately charmed listeners across Britain. He laughed, he joked, he sounded relaxed, he sounded human. There was no palace podium, no carefully staged royal ceremony, no formal speech, just a future king speaking naturally to millions of people. And that is exactly why people are paying attention now. Because when politicians avoid subjects, everyone notices. When celebrities dodge questions, everyone notices. But when a future monarch spends hours talking casually about family and never once mentions his brother, his sister-in-law, his nephew, or his niece, people start asking whether the silence itself was the message. William spoke warmly about Catherine, not with stiff palace language, but with genuine admiration. He described her as an amazing wife and an amazing mother. Those words landed differently because they sounded spontaneous. They sounded real. Then came stories about George. Little details slipped out naturally during conversation. Royal correspondents immediately noticed. Charlotte was mentioned with affection, including her fascination with Taylor Swift. Louis appeared in stories involving jam-covered fingerprints in the family car. It was the kind of ordinary family chaos that made the Wills household feel relatable. Then came another important name, his grandmother. The late Queen was remembered warmly and naturally. William even invoked her authority during the famous cream versus jam debate. The mention felt effortless, familiar, loving a grandson, remembering someone who still holds enormous emotional weight in his life. And yet that warmth creates an even bigger mystery. Because while Catherine was mentioned, George was mentioned, Charlotte was mentioned, Louis was mentioned, and Queen Elizabeth was mentioned, 4 other people connected directly to William's story seemed completely absent from the conversation. Not one accidental reference, not one passing mention, not one joke, nothing, and suddenly royal commentators started asking whether this was really an accident at all. Think about the environment. This was not a formal state occasion governed by strict protocol. This was casual breakfast radio. The entire format revolves around spontaneous conversation. Family stories appear naturally. Personal memories appear naturally. Names emerge naturally. People wander into discussions without planning. That is what makes the complete absence of certain names feel so unusual. Some royal observers believe keeping those names out of the conversation required something very deliberate. Every family anecdote, every discussion about royal life, every mention of relationships, every opportunity where another person could have appeared in the narrative. Somehow the conversation always moved elsewhere.
Prince William, His Royal Highness, appearing on the Heart Breakfast radio show, and he gave some rare insights into his family.
And that is where the investigation becomes fascinating. 3 royal biographers have reportedly spent months documenting what they describe as a pattern rather than a single moment. According to their their interpretation, this radio appearance was not an isolated incident. Instead, it was another piece of a much larger puzzle. The puzzle, they argue, is built from absences, not invitations that arrive, invitations that never arrive, not names that are spoken, names that are omitted, not public declarations, public silences. According to this theory, the royal institution rarely communicates major internal verdicts directly. Instead, messages emerge through subtle signals, through what is left unsaid, through who appears, through who doesn't. And if that theory is correct, then William's radio appearance suddenly looks very different because the silence did not begin last week. Some commentators trace it back years, long before documentaries, long before memoirs, long before public interviews exploded into global headlines. According to investigative royal author Tom Bauer, a crucial turning point may have happened during the period surrounding Queen Elizabeth II's funeral. His reporting suggests that decisions regarding future relationships inside the monarchy may have started forming much earlier than most people realized. That is what makes the next revelation so explosive. Because if certain biographers are correct, then what people witnessed on Heart Breakfast was not a temporary emotional reaction. It was the latest visible sign of a position that has allegedly been solidifying behind palace walls for years. And once you start looking at events through that lens, strange patterns begin appearing everywhere. The reception before the late Queen's funeral, the coronation, the guest lists, the carefully managed appearances, the public statements, and now a 3-hour radio broadcast where 4 names never surfaced once. One omission can be dismissed, 2 omissions can be coincidence. But when omissions begin forming a consistent pattern across years, people inevitably start wondering whether they are witnessing something much bigger. Because what if the future king has already reached a conclusion? What if the real story is not about reconciliation at all? What if, while much of the public continues debating whether bridges can still be rebuilt, the person standing closest to the future crown quietly made up his mind long ago? And if that is true, then the silence heard across millions of radios last Friday may not have been empty at all.
But on the other hand, on the way, there were many victims. And I think that the victims are obviously the people I looked for.
It may have been the loudest statement Prince William has made in years. And that is where this story stops looking like a family disagreement and starts looking like a battle over the future shape of the monarchy itself. Because according to the royal commentators, biographers, and historians now weighing in, the question is no longer whether tensions exist. The question is whether those tensions have already been transformed into a long-term strategy that is quietly unfolding behind palace walls. The reason so many royal watchers are focusing on William's radio appearance is because they believe it revealed something far more important than a casual family update. They believe it revealed priorities. Every name mentioned appeared to reinforce the image of the future king's immediate household. Catherine, George, Charlotte, Louis, the late Queen. A picture of continuity. A picture of stability, a picture of a future monarchy centered around the Wills family. And the more complete that picture became, the more noticeable the missing pieces appeared. What makes the situation even more intriguing is the growing number of reports suggesting that William and King Charles may not view the future through exactly the same lens. Publicly, both remain committed to the institution. Publicly, both maintain royal discipline. But commentators increasingly point toward 2 very different approaches. On one side stands a father reportedly interested in keeping communication channels open wherever possible. On the other stands a future king whom multiple observers describe as someone who rarely forgets major disputes and who prefers clear lines once decisions have been made. That difference matters enormously because the monarchy is approaching a period of transition unlike any it has experienced in decades. Every decision being made today could shape the institution for generations. Every relationship carries consequences. Every public signal is examined under a microscope. Every appearance, every absence, every invitation, every omission becomes evidence in a larger argument about where the monarchy is heading. And then there is the issue of titles, the subject that continues generating headlines whenever discussions about William's future reign emerge. Several commentators and authors have argued that a future monarch possesses significant authority over royal structures and honors. Whether those predictions ever become reality remains unknown. But what has captured public attention is how frequently the same possibility keeps appearing hearing from different sources, separate writers, separate publications, separate reporting trails, yet all pointing towards similar conclusions about the direction William may want the institution to take. That is why the radio silence has become so symbolic. For some observers, it was simply a man avoiding family drama during a public appearance. For others, it represented something much more significant, a visible glimpse of a decision already made, a signal hidden inside ordinary conversation, a future king speaking not through words but through careful omission. And perhaps that is what makes the entire episode so fascinating. William never attacked anyone. He never criticized anyone. He never issued a statement. He never created a headline. Instead, he spent hours talking about football victories, family life, childhood memories, school runs, music playlists, and sticky fingerprints in the car. Yet somehow those ordinary stories generated one of the biggest royal discussions of the year, because silence has power, especially inside institutions built on symbolism, especially inside families where every gesture is examined, especially inside a monarchy where history has shown that some of the most important messages are delivered indirectly. Bring everything back to that calf on the Isles of Scilly. Millions of listeners heard a future king at his most relaxed. They heard laughter, they heard warmth, they heard affection, they heard memories. What they did not hear has now become the center of an international debate. Was it kindness? Was it caution? Was it strategy? Or was it a verdict already delivered long before anyone realized it was being written? That is the question still hanging over this story. Because while commentators continue debating what William really thinks, one fact remains impossible to ignore. During nearly 3 hours of national radio, he had countless opportunities to mention certain names. The opportunities came and went. The conversation moved forward, the broadcast ended, and the silence remained exactly where it started. Sometimes the biggest royal story is not hidden inside the words people hear. Sometimes it is hidden inside the words that never arrive. And if the observers tracking this story are correct, then that silence may become much easier to understand in the years ahead when today's small omissions are viewed through the lens of tomorrow's decisions. Until then, the questions remain unanswered, the speculation continues, and the royal chessboard keeps moving one careful piece at a time while the world tries to figure out which moves matter most.